We're now joined by the Minister of Official Languages, Ginette Petitpas-Taylor. Minister, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks for the invitation, Michael.
Now, we are approaching 1 year since you introduced your Official Languages Act. The bill is still in committee. Are you concerned that it's taking so long?
Well, I think first and foremost, Michael, we have to take a few steps back. When I became the official language minister, I first and foremost consulted with many stakeholders across the country to see what exactly they wanted in this new legislation that I tabled, Bill C-13. And as such, as you've indicated, we tabled the new modernized legislation on March 1st, and the matter is presently before the House of Commons Standing Committee on Official Languages, and we continue to follow that process very closely.
But the process is taking perhaps longer than many had anticipated. There's been pushback from opposition MPs. But, you know, as you are well aware, you've also received pushback from your own caucus colleagues. Why weren't these concerns, in particular about Anglophone rights in Quebec, why weren't they ironed out before the bill went to committee?
I think what we have to recognize, Michael, is that we are in a parliamentary setting, a minority government, and it's really important that the work be done at the committee level, and that's exactly what is happening right now. I think that we've all recognized over the past few weeks, we've seen many emotional interventions that have been made at committee, and that's not unhealthy. I think it's really important as members of parliament that folks have the opportunity in order to voice the concerns of their constituents, and that's exactly what our colleagues have done. But moving forward, the committee continues to work in studying all amendments that have been provided to committee. And again, I'm optimistic that we are going to see the end of that study done very soon.
But I'm wondering, given that this is all being hashed out in committee as opposed to behind closed door before the bill was actually introduced, did that contribute to the kind of public fighting that we have been witnessing? In particular, I'm thinking of your colleague, Francis Drouin, taking to Twitter to express his frustration with fellow Liberals.
Again, I think we have to recognize that legislation bring forward when it comes to official languages is a very personal piece of legislation. This is identity. This is about who we are. Official languages is very personal, and I think that we've seen the debate, a healthy debate, if you will, in front of committee. I think, again, we have to recognize that as parliamentarians, as our caucus members, we don't tell our members what to think and what to say at committee. And I think we've seen that our committee members have been very vocal and have shared their issues and also the points of view of their constituents. And I think it's healthy in a healthy democracy to be able to show those concerns. And moving forward, again, they've voiced their concerns, but moving forward, the Liberal government is very united in knowing that we have to address the decline of French that's happening in this country, and we recognize that French is the minority language in this country that really is threatened. And as such, that's why that we're moving forward with a robust piece of legislation to help to promote French all across the country, but also while respecting official language minority communities.
Well, you mentioned the Anglophone community in Quebec, and there certainly are concerns being expressed by Montreal area Liberals. They are concerned about references to Quebec's language charter through this bill. Anglophones beyond the MPs within Quebec are concerned that the charter would actually limit their ability to use English in the province. What do you say to that concern?
Well, with respect to Bill 96, that's provincial legislation that's in place in Quebec. Bill C-13 is a federal piece of legislation. Yes, we make reference to the French charter, if you will, but we are in no way saying that we agree or disagree with that legislation. It's simply stating that that is the legislation that's in place or the law that's in place in Quebec. I want to be very clear to our English-speaking listeners that are out there. Bill C-13 does nothing to take away any rights from Anglophones in Quebec. And coming from a minority language community myself, I recognize the importance of our legislation, and I've made it very clear that we want to make sure that our legislation, number one, protects our official minority communities, but also we have to recognize that French is a language that is threatened in this country. It is the minority language in this country, and the federal government has to play its role in making sure that we address that issue.
Oh, but it could a simple solution, and you know this has been raised with you before, but could a simple solution just be acknowledging that English is a minority language in Quebec within the bill itself, the way the bill currently acknowledges the challenges the French language faces in other parts of the country?
But we also recognize that, you know, that New Brunswick has its specificity in New Brunswick as well, and we make reference to that within our legislation. Again, we recognize that when it comes to linguistic matters, these are very, very personal and thoughtful conversations that are going on, and it really comes to get us. I recognize that. And I think that if this bill would be an easy bill to move forward, probably many governments in the past would have done so. We want to take this on because we feel it's extremely important. Interveners from across the country have been waiting for decades for a modernization of the Official Languages Act, and moving forward, that's exactly what we're doing. 2023, I say, is going to be the year for official languages, with hopefully our modernization and the adoption of this legislation, but also with our new action plan for the next 5 years, because we want to put in place what our work plan is for the next 5 years when it comes to official languages, and I'm looking forward to be able to table that report in the very near future.
What do you say then to again, the Anglophone community in Quebec who have already said they feel abandoned by the provincial Liberal Party, and now this bill and the contentious back and forth in committee are worried about losing their rights within the province? What do you say to those Quebecers who feel that there is no Liberal Party to turn to when it comes to protecting their language rights?
Well, again, my comment, and again, I want to be very clear that with respect to Bill C-13, former Justice, Supreme Court Judge Bastarache made it very clear when he appeared at the Senate, and he said, and I quote, that Bill C-13 takes no rights away from Anglophones in Quebec. So I want to be very, very clear, and I think that we have to make the differentiation between between Bill 96 and also between Bill C-13. They're two different pieces of legislation. They're absolutely not at all the same, and we want to make sure that federally that we are going to take our responsibilities when it comes to protecting and promoting French across this country, but also while protecting our official language minority communities.
Well, you mentioned New Brunswick, and I also want to get your thoughts on the educational changes being considered for New Brunswick, your home province. It would create an immersion program come the fall for kids who enter kindergarten in grade 1. Those students would spend part of the day learning in French, the other learning in English. There has been pushback from parents. As the MP for Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe, what's your take on what's happening right now in New Brunswick?
Well, it's not legislation that's being proposed, but there are changes to the immersion program, and I have to say that I'm extremely concerned with respect to the situation, and I'm monitoring the situation very closely. I think we've seen across New Brunswick there's been several public consultations with the Minister of Education, and we have seen a record number of people turn out to these consultations. Parents are rightfully concerned with respect to the changes that are being proposed in the immersion program. And what is being proposed is really, if you ask me, not an immersion program, but an introduction to French program. And it's almost an initiation, if you will, to French. So I can certainly understand why parents are concerned, why New Brunswickers are concerned with respect to these changes. The government, Minister Horgan and also Premier Higgs have indicated there is no decision that is set in stone yet. They're still looking at the consultation results. So again, as the minister responsible for official languages federally, and also as you've indicated, being an Acadian from New Brunswick, this is a dossier, a file that I'm following closely, as we know that it could have some serious repercussions for our students in New Brunswick.
Minister, thank you for the time. I really appreciate it today.
Thank you.